I have been practicing orthopedic surgery for a long time, and one statistic has never stopped bothering me. Nearly 40% of adults over 65 in Western countries cannot rise from a chair without pushing off with their arms. Not because of a specific injury, not because of a diagnosed disease, simply because their legs have become too weak to lift their own body weight. I see these patients in my clinic every week, and what frustrates me is that most of this decline is preventable. Now contrast that with what researchers have documented in Okinawa, Japan, a region that has more people living past 100 years old per capita than anywhere else on Earth. These are not people who are merely surviving into old age. They are climbing stairs unassisted. They are gardening on their knees and standing back up. They are walking miles every day without canes, without walkers, without the kind of functional decline we have come to treat as inevitable in the West. So what is actually different? I started looking into this seriously after a colleague sent me a study from the Journal of Geriatric Physical Therapy that I could not stop thinking about. Researchers followed over 3,000 Japanese adults between 60 and 85 years old and found that those who regularly performed traditional Japanese leg strengthening exercises showed a 112% improvement in lower limb muscle strength over just 18 months, more than double their baseline strength, and their fall risk dropped by 67% compared to the control group. A follow-up study from Tokyo Metropolitan University examined why these exercises produce such outsized results. The answer comes down to muscle fiber recruitment. Traditional Japanese movements activate the deep stabilizing muscles of the leg, the ones responsible for balance and functional movement, in ways that standard Western exercise programs simply do not reach. We have been training the surface muscles and neglecting the architecture underneath. As an orthopedic surgeon, that finding made complete sense to me. The patients I operate on for knee replacements, hip fractures, and spinal instability almost universally have the same underlying deficit: deep stabilizer weakness that was never addressed until structural damage made surgery unavoidable. Today I am going to walk you through the 6 exercises I now recommend to every patient over 60 who walks into my clinic. They require no gym, no equipment, and most take under 10 minutes a day. I am ranking them from helpful to absolutely essential, and I am saving the most important one for last, because the research behind it is unlike anything I have seen for a non-surgical intervention. A clinical trial from Kyoto University found that seniors who performed this single exercise for just 8 weeks increased quadriceps strength by 89% and improved their balance scores by over 70%. 12 participants who started the study using walkers were walking independently by the end. Not after surgery, not after medication, after one exercise performed consistently. Stay with me until the end for that one. And before we begin, drop your age and location in the comments below. I read every single one and I respond personally. Exercise number 6, heel raises with wall support. In Japan, this movement is called kakato age, heel raising. And if you spend time observing daily life in Japanese communities, you will see elderly men and women doing it constantly. At the kitchen counter, on train platforms, in line at the market. It has become so embedded in the culture that most people do not even think of it as exercise. They simply do it. I think about it as vascular medicine performed with your own body. Here is what I explain to my patients. Your calf muscles are not just responsible for pushing off the ground when you walk. They are your second circulatory pump. Every contraction of the calf squeezes the venous network in your lower leg and drives blood back up toward the heart against gravity. When these muscles weaken, which happens progressively after 60, venous return decreases, circulation to the lower extremities deteriorates, and you enter a cycle of muscle atrophy that accelerates everything else. Weaker muscles, worse circulation, weaker muscles. A study from the University of Tokyo assigned 240 adults over 65 to either daily heel raises or a control group for 12 weeks. The exercise group gained 34% more calf muscle strength and showed 28% better ankle stability. But the finding that caught my attention as a clinician was this. The exercise group also improved their walking speed by 19%. Walking speed is something I monitor closely in older patients. It is now recognized as a genuine biomarker of systemic health. Some researchers call it the sixth vital sign. Improving walking speed in a 70-year-old is not a cosmetic outcome. It correlates directly with longevity. How to perform it. Stand facing a wall with your palms resting lightly against it, feet hip-width apart. Rise slowly onto the balls of your feet, lifting your heels as high as comfortable. Hold the top position for 2 to 3 seconds. Then lower with full control, resisting gravity on the way down, not just dropping. The eccentric phase, the lowering, is where a significant portion of the strength adaptation occurs. Do not skip it. Japanese physical therapists recommend 20 repetitions 3 times per day, morning, midday, and evening. Each set takes roughly 5 minutes. Research from Osaka University found that performing heel raises on a slightly elevated surface, such as a thick book or a low step, increases muscle activation by an additional 23%. Just ensure you have something stable to hold. Exercise number 5. Sumo stance hip circles. This movement comes from traditional sumo training and is called mawashi, rotating or circling. Japanese community fitness programs have adapted it specifically for older adults, and it addresses something I see neglected almost universally in Western exercise programs: hip joint mobility and inner thigh strength. I want to explain why I consider hip strength foundational, because patients often assume knee pain is a knee problem. Frequently, it is not. The hip abductors and adductors, the muscles that stabilize and control the hip joint, determine how load is distributed through the entire lower kinetic chain. When they are weak, the knee compensates, the patella tracks improperly, and pain develops in a joint that is actually the victim rather than the source. A study published in the Journal of Physical Therapy Science compared Japanese adults who regularly practiced traditional sumo-derived exercises with those following standard Western leg protocols. After 10 weeks, the sumo group showed 41% greater hip stability and 37% stronger inner thigh muscles. They also reported significantly less knee pain, which, for the reasons I just described, makes complete biomechanical sense. How to perform it. Stand with your feet well beyond shoulder width apart, toes turned out approximately 45 degrees. Bend your knees slightly and place your hands on your thighs for support. From this position, make slow, deliberate circles with your hips, as if stirring a large pot with your pelvis. 10 circles in each direction. The Japanese approach to this exercise emphasizes mindfulness over speed. Each circle should take 3 to 4 seconds. You should feel engagement in your inner thighs, outer hips, and deep hip rotators simultaneously. If you notice any sharp pinching in the hip joint, reduce the diameter of your circles. Research from Juntendo University found that performing hip mobility work first thing in the morning increased hip range of motion by 15% throughout the rest of the day, translating directly to easier walking, easier stair climbing, and less lower back loading. Exercise number 4, seated leg extensions. This exercise is called Suwari Ashi, sitting leg, and it has been a staple of Japanese rehabilitation practice for decades. I recommend it to patients who need to rebuild quadricep strength, but whose knees cannot yet tolerate the load of standing exercises. Your quadriceps are 4 muscles. They work together to extend the knee and stabilize the patella. They are also the muscle group I see most devastated by age-related disuse in patients over 60. The numbers are sobering. Without active intervention, adults lose approximately 3 to 5% of quadricep strength every year after age 60. Over a decade, that is potentially half your functional knee strength. Gone not from injury, but from inactivity. A clinical trial at Hokkaido University followed 180 older adults for 6 months. Half performed seated leg extensions 3 times per week. The results were striking. 53% increase in quadricep strength, 44% improvement in chair rise ability, and 39% faster stair climbing speed. These are not marginal gains. These are the differences between independence and assisted living. How to perform it. Sit in a sturdy chair with your back supported and feet flat on the floor. Slowly straighten one leg until it is parallel to the ground. Hold for 2 seconds. Lower with control. Alternate legs. That is 1 repetition. Begin with 10 on each side and build gradually to 20. Once 20 repetitions feel manageable, add light ankle weights. Research from Kobe University found that adding just 1 kilogram per ankle, approximately 2 pounds, increased muscle activation by 31% compared to the unweighted version. That is a meaningful jump in training stimulus with a very low risk of joint stress. One practical note on timing. Research consistently shows that leg strengthening exercises performed in the early to mid-afternoon, roughly between 2 and 5 p.m., produce slightly better strength adaptations than the same exercises done in the morning. This is related to natural diurnal variation in core body temperature and anabolic hormone levels. It is a small edge, but when we are talking about patients trying to rebuild strength, every advantage matters. Exercise number 3, modified deep squatting. This exercise is called shagamu, to crouch or squat, and I want to address something directly before explaining it, because I know what many of you have been told. A lot of Western physicians advise older patients to avoid squatting. I understand the reasoning behind that guidance, and in cases of severe knee or hip pathology, limitations are appropriate. But as a blanket recommendation for adults over 60, the evidence does not support it, and the Japanese data makes a compelling counterargument. In Japan, deep squatting is not an exercise. It is simply how people move through their daily lives. Traditional toilets require it. Gardening requires it. Picking up grandchildren requires it. This lifelong practice maintains the muscle length, tendon flexibility, and joint mechanics of the entire lower body in ways that a life spent in chairs simply cannot replicate. A study from the National Institute of Health and Nutrition in Tokyo compared elderly Japanese adults who regularly squatted with elderly Western adults who avoided it. The Japanese group showed 68% greater leg strength, 45% better balance scores, and hip flexibility scores nearly double those of the Western group. These are not subtle differences. How to perform it. Stand in front of a countertop or sturdy piece of furniture and hold on with both hands. Feet shoulder width apart. Push your hips back and bend your knees as if lowering toward a chair. But instead of stopping at chair height, go only as far as you can while maintaining control and experiencing no pain. For some patients, that is a few inches. For others, it is much deeper. Both versions produce measurable benefit. Hold the lowest comfortable position for 3 seconds, then drive through your heels to stand. Begin with 5 repetitions and add 1 per week until you reach 15. The most important finding from this body of research, in my view, comes from the University of Tsukuba. Squat depth matters far less than squatting frequency. Patients who perform shallow squats every single day showed greater overall improvement than those who performed deeper squats only twice per week. Consistency and regularity outperform intensity every time. That is a principle I apply throughout my rehabilitation recommendations. Exercise number 2, single leg standing balance. This exercise is called katashi dachi, one leg standing, and it looks almost embarrassingly simple. But I want you to understand the neuromuscular science behind it, because what is happening beneath the surface is anything but simple. When you stand on one leg, your central nervous system must coordinate input from your visual system, your vestibular system, and proprioceptive sensors throughout your foot, ankle, knee, and hip, all in real time, to prevent you from falling. To do this, it recruits muscle fibers across your entire lower extremity simultaneously, including stabilizers that virtually no conventional exercise reaches. This is neural training, and it produces strength gains through a mechanism that traditional resistance exercise does not fully exploit. A study from Tohoku University compared balance training directly against standard strength training in adults over 70. The balance training group showed 47% greater functional leg strength improvement, despite lifting no weights at all. The neural adaptations from Balance Challenge drove strength gains that conventional exercises could not match. More importantly for my patients, the same study found that single-leg standing practice reduced fall risk by 73%. I want you to sit with that number for a moment. Falls are the leading cause of injury-related death in adults over 65. They are the primary driver of nursing home admissions. Reducing fall risk by 73% with an exercise that requires no equipment and can be performed while brushing your teeth is one of the most significant preventive interventions available to this population. How to perform it? Stand near a wall or sturdy furniture. Shift your weight onto one foot and lift the other foot just an inch or two off the ground. Hold as long as you can. Initially, this may be only a few seconds. With consistent practice, work toward 30 seconds per side. Research from Chiba University found that 3 short sessions per day, 30 seconds each, produced better results than one 90-second session. Frequency of neural challenge matters more than duration of any single bout. Once you can hold 30 seconds comfortably with eyes open, close your eyes. I know that sounds alarming, but the data is unambiguous. Research from Kyushu University found that eyes closed, single-leg standing increased muscle activation by 58% compared to the eyes open version. Your visual system provides approximately 70% of your balance information. When you remove it, your leg muscles have to compensate entirely. The adaptive stimulus is dramatically greater. Always practice near a wall when attempting this variation. Exercise number 1. Tachi Sueri, the stand and sit movement. I saved this one for last because it is the exercise I now consider the single most important movement intervention available to adults over 60. Not just on this list, in general. The research is that compelling. Let me give you the full details of the Kyoto University trial I mentioned at the outset. Researchers recruited 120 adults between 65 and 85 years old, all with significant documented leg weakness. Half were assigned to practice Tachi Sueri, the stand and sit movement, daily for 8 weeks. The other half received standard care. The results after 8 weeks: quadricep strength increased by 89%. Hamstring strength increased by 76%. Balance scores improved by 71%. And 12 participants who had been using walkers at the start of the study were walking independently by the end. I have performed complex reconstructive surgeries that did not produce outcomes this significant. And this was standing up and sitting down. Here is the biomechanical reason it works so well, and why I think this explanation matters for patient adherence. When you rise from a chair, you must generate enough force with your leg muscles to lift your entire body weight against gravity through a full range of knee and hip motion. This is functionally equivalent to a bodyweight squat. But the chair provides a target, a safety net, and critically, a psychological permission structure that allows older patients to push themselves harder than they would during a freestanding movement. If anything goes wrong, you simply sit back down. A follow-up study by the same research team identified why the movement is so comprehensive. It activates not only the quadriceps and hamstrings, but also the deep hip stabilizers and the muscles around the knee that are responsible for joint protection. These are the muscles I wish more of my pre-surgical patients had developed before their structural damage required intervention. How to perform it correctly. Sit in a sturdy chair without armrests, or if you need armrests for safety, begin there and progress away from them. Feet flat on the floor, hip width apart. Cross your arms over your chest. Lean slightly forward from the hips, then push through both feet to stand, without using your hands. Pause at the top. Then lower yourself back to sitting with full control, resisting the descent rather than dropping. That lowering phase is not optional. Research from Keio University found that emphasizing the controlled descent increased strength gains by an additional 24% compared to simply dropping into the chair. Eccentric loading, muscle work performed while lengthening under load, is one of the most potent stimuli for muscle adaptation we know of. Use it. Progression protocol. Begin with 10 repetitions performed slowly, 3 seconds up, 3 seconds down. Do this twice daily, morning and evening. Add 2 repetitions per week until you reach 30. A study from Juntendo University identified 30 repetitions twice daily as the threshold for maximum benefit. Beyond that, fatigue and soreness increased without additional strength gains. Once 30 repetitions on a standard chair are manageable, lower the chair height. Research from Osaka Medical College found that reducing chair height by just 4 inches increased muscle activation by 33%. Progress only when you can complete 30 repetitions cleanly and without compensation. On timing. A study from Tokai University found that performing this exercise immediately after waking produced the greatest improvements in daily functional ability across the entire day. The researchers concluded that activating the primary leg muscles first thing in the morning establishes neuromuscular recruitment patterns that carry forward through every movement that follows. Make it the first thing you do. Here is how I suggest approaching these 6 exercises as a program. Start with exercise 6 tomorrow morning. Practice it for 1 week before adding anything else. Your tendons and joint structures need time to adapt, not just your muscles. Week 2, add exercise 5. Continue building 1 exercise per week until all 6 are part of your daily routine. A study from the National Center for Geriatrics and Gerontology in Japan found that performing all 6 of these movements takes an average of 18 minutes per day. 18 minutes for a 67% reduction in fall risk, the potential to double your lower limb strength, and the kind of functional independence that keeps you out of my operating room. I have watched patients implement programs like this and genuinely reverse the trajectory of their functional decline. Not slow it, reverse it. The research supports that outcome, and my clinical experience confirms it. These exercises represent something that took me years of practice to fully appreciate. The most durable outcomes in orthopedic health are not achieved in the operating room. They are achieved through consistent, intelligent daily movement. The Japanese have understood this for generations. The science is now catching up. If you have specific joint conditions, severe arthritis, recent joint replacement, or significant instability, please speak with your physician before beginning. But for the majority of adults over 60 experiencing general age-related leg weakness, these movements are safe, effective, and evidence-backed. Now I want to hear from you. Which of these 6 exercises are you going to start with tomorrow? And if you are already doing any of them, tell me in the comments how long it took before you noticed real changes in your strength or balance. Drop your age and location as well. I read every comment and I respond to each one personally. Your legs carried you here. Take care of them.